All right, welcome back, everyone. So today I wanted to cover a little bit of the CCU stuff, just because we have a lot more news from the Star Citizen Live today and Ship Talk. So I definitely want to cover this as we have a much better idea of what will be coming out next year, especially those concept ships that are coming out, and we just have a better idea of things so that we can understand what CCUs should we gather today or focus on during IAE. And a very brief synopsis. I've already done a video separately on this. First of all, I usually watch Zytek's stuff on this, so I will link to his channel. He'll cover every day, typically during these events, and the different war bonds made available. Obviously, these days it's just one war bond. That's just the way that they've been doing it the last 2 years, so this year and last year. However, I think he probably has Thanksgiving plans for the day. So happy Thanksgiving to those, here in the States that celebrate that. Or those even, no, still happy Thanksgiving for everybody. At the end of the day here, though, it seems like he'll probably do another video later this evening. So up first here, I do want to cover the CCUs, but let me just a really quick pregame. I'll also link to the pregaming kind of a video I did. If you've already watched that, thank you. Otherwise, the synopsis is I like to pick ships that I don't really need or don't really use. I melt those temporarily during IAE. And then at the end of the event, when I'm done with it, I use a buyback token to buy that back. If I typically want it, or what I do is by December 2nd, I make sure to lock in what I want my fleet to look like because everything is up and available during IAE. So now's the perfect time to melt things you don't want. And at the end of the show, lock in what it is that you want to keep as your fleet. Okay, so again, there's a whole other video on that if you want to check that out. So we're going to start from top to bottom here with the ships. I want to cover, I will cover if it's a concept or not, but I'll also let you know, hey, I don't, we can't sniff out any evidence it's coming anytime soon. So if you want to buy it, great, but there's no FOMO associated with buying it, right? So the idea is that there's certain concepts that are more than likely coming next year because they've given us such indications during the recent ship talk. So at first we have the Perseus. So this is a war bond. It's okay, Warbond, obviously, if you want to get to the Perseus, Merchantman being a good choice here, or the Orion. Both of these two are not coming anytime soon. The Merchantman being the better choice is even just a few days ago, it was offered on its own Warbond. So you're able to make a jump up from, I think, like even the Carrack. So if you're interested in making some momentum here, the Merchantman's the way to go. Unfortunately, if you didn't buy the Merchantman a couple days ago, I don't see it coming up again until probably Alien Week. Typically, I see the Merchantman come up every IAE during the Alien Day, and I typically see it come up during Alien Week. So it's probably not going to be too terribly long for you to wait if you get the Merchantman. So that's going to be the choice there. That is going to be a $50 play. So it's pretty hefty, but it's the easiest way to get into the Perseus if you haven't already have the Perseus, or if you don't have the $800 now. You can temporarily buy it, but then I would buy these CCUs. But again, this is a case where at the end of the show, if you have the $800, maybe you buy that. But if you want to build up to a cheaper option, do be mindful with these war bonds. You do have to hold on to them. So it is a pretty hefty investment because you can't put this in your buyback. So the war bonds, again, be mindful with the war bonds specifically. You cannot put those in your melt buyback. You have to keep them in your hangar. Otherwise, if you melt them, it no longer keeps its value as a war bond. You have to pay the full price for it back. All right, A2. Another option here, but honestly, this is only really good for the A2 itself because the A2 is an expensive craft. It is a good discount for it, but I would only buy this if you're interested in the A2 itself. I wouldn't use it to get a hold of the Perseus or the Polaris specifically. You can see it's $25 here, whereas the Perseus was a $50, so it seems like it would potentially be better, but you still have to pay the $50 difference between these two. So you can see it would be $75 total to get towards the Perseus here. It's even more for the Polaris, and it's possible the Polaris could go on sale as a war bond later on during this event, but that would be its own catch between here and the Perseus. There's a $175 difference between these two. There's no way that the Polaris doesn't get $175 off. More than likely, you can make this jump. So I would definitely focus on the Perseus or the Polaris. If you want those CCUs, I would leave the A2 out of it. So the A2 is only a good selection if you want the A2. Moving on. Odyssey. Unfortunately, the Odyssey is no sight here. So I don't see this one coming. If you want to purchase it and put it in your buyback, that's great. It gives you access to the Perseus, but there's no indication this is coming as a particular pick. Merchantman, same story, as well as the Orion. So all three of these are current concept ships, but no work is being indicated on any of these. So if you think that one of these might come next year, then I would purchase them. But again, there's no indication that any of these three are coming along. Liberator is supposedly being worked on, and so there's a chance it comes along next year. So I would, if you're interested at all, I would pick up the whole D, the Liberator. I would not feel like I would need to hold on to I mean, I'm personally going to hold on to it. That's my own personal choice. But I can see spending the $25 before it comes out to pull that back out of your buyback. And it could be picked up now with store credit. So I think, that's something you could potentially put in your buyback, or you can hold on to it until you think the Liberator may come out. I wouldn't expect to see the Liberator till probably this time next year. Maybe we see it sooner, like Fleet Week. That would be great because they have a lot of Anvil assets. But that's hopium. More than likely, it would be something like IAE because it is a fairly large ship. Arastra and the whole D here, same story, same song and dance. We don't see any indication those are coming out. So the Liberator is the only one that I would have picked up here. The next one is the Ironclad Assault. There's good indication this will come out during Fleet Week. So the Ironclad Assault to the M2, $15. This is definitely going to be a pretty easy pickup for a concept ship that will be coming out more than likely next year, probably during Fleet Week. So this is probably the last opportunity. Potentially, it's a FOMO call here, but more than likely this is the last opportunity to pick it up at this price point before it goes up in price. Now, we don't know how much it'll go up in price, so possibly during Fleet Week, it could go up and be closer to, maybe something like how much would it go up? Because they've already increased, it's going to increase the amount it's going to be able to carry as well. So it could match the same price as these other that are $575. So it's still going to be probably a $25 difference closest to the whole D, sorry. So I'd spend that 15 now to pick up the Ironclad Assault. Spend that in your store credit and then put that in your buyback, and then I would spend that $15 to pull it out of the buyback before it comes out. If you're interested at all in the Ironclad Assault, you just need to make sure you put it into your hangar before the ship actually releases. Otherwise, you'd have to pay the full difference with a CCU. Moving on here, they've already had the M2 as a Warbond option, so that's definitely going to make a good jump sense here if you want to make up this option. The M2 does come up quite a bit as a Warbond option. Next, we have the Ironclad itself. So this is definitely going to be a good pickup as well for $10. So I would pick up this and the Assault if you're interested at all again. And then you just would want to buy these back before they come out, which again, potentially Fleet Week next year is when we would potentially see them. But they're actively working on them and they're well on their way. Okay, moving on here. Again, same story for both of those. They'll probably expect to see them at the same time. Genesis, no sign of this is coming at all. However, the Galaxy, there is a sign here that the Galaxy is being worked on. It's an easy $5 pickup between the Valkyrie or the Starlancer TAC. For $5, let's take a look at how many Warbonds there's been. I know there's been a few. So as of this year, there was a year ago. That's kind of longer than I thought it would be. But the TAC has had a few as well. So the TAC has had a few. We see... Oops. Okay, just the one so far. So, and that's just when it was released, to be honest. No, that was after its release. Was it? Was it released in June? Wasn't. It was announced here. Yeah, I think it was finally released in June. So that's around Fleet Week. So at any rate, I would pick up either one of these two. If you have one of these two Warbonds, great. It's a tough call, but we don't know which Warbonds will be made available up till then between the TAC and the Valkyrie. But at least having it for $5, we have a whole year before this will come out again. Potentially you can get it during Fleet Week. It's not a combat ship. I'm not actually thinking we could potentially pick this up because it's not considered a combat ship during Fleet Week. I would pick it up now, especially since it's only $5. I would buy a couple of these. And then I would just potentially buy them out of your buyback for $5 every few months next year, and that way you have access to a few of them. And it's going to be just as good as a Warbond, and for now you can just buy it with $5 for store credit. So I would definitely do that. Moving on, but that's a big one. So if you definitely want the Galaxy, I expect that to go up. I mean, it would easily go up by the $20. Probably more than that. It might be closer to these two here. They like to kind of have prices be the same these days, so I could see it more at like a 440 mark, more so than the 435. But I would expect to see it more in this range than I would the C2 price range. So I don't expect it to go up by $20. I expect it to be higher than that. Maybe 440. Would it go to the 450 mark? Maybe. They don't have other 450s except for the Ironclad, which will also go up. So yeah, it's going to go up by quite a bit. I would expect, again, probably around the same price as the Prowler, if not more. All right, moving on down. The Endeavor, not coming anytime soon, unfortunately. But also goodbye now if you wanted to. Crucible, same story. No sign of it coming, but now worthwhile as a good buy if you want to pick it up now. It's a $10 dip. Both of these two are $10 within the Gemini. So if you want to pick those up with the Gemini, that's fine. Let's see. Nothing else here as far... Well, we do have a Warbond for the Paladin because the Paladin was still relatively recently released. If you want to pick that up, that's great. Pick it up between the Aquila or the Mole. Both of these show up around the same amount of times, so it's kind of a shot in the dark. The mole being a bit more. So again, I'm not looking at the CCU game specifically each time. It's just my best guess as we see these a fair amount between the two, but I think the mole comes up a bit more. That's just based off my memory. So for $10, I would prioritize the mole there, but if you want to pick up one of each, that's fine too. So either, but if you want to do a 50-50 chance there, the mole shows up a bit more than the Aquila does. Already, watch the Aquila show up and not the mole during this event. Okay, the Stinger. Stinger is not a very good war bond because it already matches the price of a couple other ships, and it's just not a very strong war bond. But because it's still a relatively recent release ship, you can pick it up now. It's at the 290 mark, so there's only a Sentinel, and the Sentinel never shows up as a war bond. So that's why it's not a very good option. So if you specifically want the Stinger, yes, I would buy this. But if you don't want the Stinger, it's a good skip because, again, the Sentinel itself does not show up as a war bond. So you kind of have to jump from something else to the Sentinel in order to get access to it. And you can see it's already itself $15 away from the next ship. So yeah, not a good option there. But if you want the Stinger, it's your only option. On down. Where I know we're kind of speed running these, but that's the best way to kind of go through these. MX. Okay, yeah, sorry. I did this. That did show up during the MISC and Mirai Day, so that's why I thought. But it's also up because of the subscriber stuff. Guardian QI, same story here. It's not actually up as a war bond, but it's because of it's the ship of the month. All three of them are. So the Guardian will be up here as well. Oh, it's actually doesn't have one for the ship of the month. So it just gives you a 24-month insurance. But right now, all of these can be bought with, I think, the 10-year. Okay, and we haven't covered any other concepts. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any. Sorry, I was going quickly there. Okay, no, didn't miss any other concepts. Most of the concepts are big, which is partially why I think a lot of people should be picking those up. For the we missed skip the Railen. Okay, I did. I went right past the Railen and ignored it. Railen, this is a big one. So we've already had the Terrapin Medic show up as a Warbond. Unfortunately, if you missed that, then that was during Anvil Day. So that would have been a good choice. That would still probably be my choice over the Terrapin. But both this and the Terrapin show up occasionally. I think the Defender's a net zero. I doubt the Defenders had any, to be completely honest. Except for maybe on like original. Oh no, I'm wrong. I lied to you. It's not often though. So we've had two Warbonds. Is that the same year? No. So June. So it's shown up during Fleet Week, but it didn't show up this year as well. Okay, so it does show up in Fleet Week occasionally. So potentially you might see Fleet Week next year, but I would still pick up the Terrapin or the Medic because the Terrapin Medic is relatively newer. But I know the regular Terrapin has shown up a bunch, right? So we already see quite a few war bonds. So it's come up quite a fair amount, and so has, again, this showed up even just a few days ago. So I would pick one of these two over that, but it's $5. So I would definitely get a couple of these because the Railen will go up significantly in value. So right now you get the C2 as a loaner, and the C2 is a $400 ship. So there's going to be significant upward momentum with the Railen when it comes out because it's going to be comparable to the C2. Now the C2 cargo is internal, so I don't necessarily think it'll be the same price as the C2, but let's take a look at some of the 300s. 340, 350. Ooh, 350 is looking like probably the winning price here. It could be 375. So I would see it. I don't think it goes out as a C2 price because it's not going to be as fast and the cargo is not kept inside like the C2, although it could. So it's possible it's $400 because of the alien tax as well. So either the Railen's about $400, it could go above that. I think at a minimum it's going to be maybe 375 or 350. So I think it's in one of these two ranges easy. The problem is because people are buying all these Warbonds right now, the higher they make it in value, a lot of folks will get a lot of value out of it right now. So I would definitely spend the $5 today on the Railen for one of these. If you want to do all of them, that's fine too. There's no loss in that. And then what you do is you buy back. If you want to do all of these, that's $15, right? So spending $15 before it comes out, just in case a Warbond might show up, is definitely a win here. And it's still going to save you. And you just sell back any of them that you don't use. Or again, keep on it. Just keep them because they're going to allow you a lot of upward momentum from 225 to, again, closer to that $400 mark is looking like that'll probably be the final price. I'm thinking 350, 375. We don't know for sure. So all of this stuff is in my opinion, and it's absolutely best guess based upon its capabilities and what we know. And because of an alien tax, technically it should be more than that. But we'll just have to wait and see. But you can see how the upper momentum on the amount of money you put. If you're starting off at 220, you're paying the 225, and the upper momentum as it comes out. That's why picking up these concepts is so important right now. if you're interested in the CCU game. If you want it, alternatively, you can buy these kinds of ships. If you buy it right now, as with the 10 year, it also stays at that price as well in your buyback. So you can buy it back at the 225. That's also something I've done during the event. All right, moving on down. Uh, we had already passed, I think, or we're getting ready to pass up the MR. So the MR here, we already passed. No, we haven't. Yeah, we passed up the E1 as well, which there's no signs of that coming out. It's 250 in it. Yeah, it's in here somewhere. That's 250. Maybe I'm crazy. The Spirit, maybe it's 150. Sorry, we'll keep heading down. Okay, I was thinking of the wrong ship. So, oh, this is more expensive of the two. Okay, so the MR, no sign of this coming out. I wouldn't mind, paying the few bucks. It's $5 between, itself and some of the Hornets. So if you want to buy that, that's fine. But there's no sign the MR is coming out. There's only somewhat signs of this because we have the smuggling. That's possible that's similar to Bounty Hunting 2.0, but there's been no real evidence of that. So it's hard to say if the MR is, because the MR is kind of ready. So if you wanted to buy this, I wouldn't fault you for that. I know I personally have. And I'm planning on, I have an ES right now because of the ship of, and if you have the ES, it's an easy one to spend the extra 15 bucks to go ahead and hold on to a CCU from the ES to the MR. Similar story with the CL as well, the Zeus, if you like the MR over those two variants. Moving on down here. B. I know we're going to get close to the whole B, which is the next big one. Expanse. Expanse is another big one. It's hard to tell when refining will come out compared to crafting. There's no sign this is technically coming, but I definitely wouldn't hate the idea of buying this because I think it's a $5, yeah, from the Razor. So if you wanted to spend $5 on this, again, there's no sign that this one's coming, but there's not an indication it might not come with a lot of the overall crafting and refinery stuff. They've been doing work with refining stuff. I Again, no sign that shows up for ships with engineering and everything coming out relatively soon. I wouldn't fault you for trying to pick those up. And it shouldn't show up again for an IAE because the Fleet Week next year, it shouldn't show up. So you have to wait till next year during IAE to pick it up. Moving on down, the E1, no sign of this coming along. No real sign of passenger gameplay at all. So I can't say at all it'd be worth. I mean, if you want to get it, that's fine. But there's no indication you need to get it today versus maybe another IAE. Whole B. This is another big one. You'll want to pay the $5 difference between either the Cuddy Red or the the Freelancer Dur here. Um, I picked both of them, but both of these do occasionally. Actually, the red. Does the red actually get any? Atlas red. Okay, it's only had two. I know the Dur has had or I recognize at least having one of them. I think it's had a few more missing data. Okay, I know I had a Dur. I'm pretty sure I've had one of these CCUs before as a Warbond. Um, I don't know. Either one of these choices is fine. It's still spending $5. It's hard to say um, if it's going to be worthwhile. Maybe like the C1 is not that far away, so it's $10, and the C1 definitely has some. So if you have to spend the $10 to jump to this, that's fine. At any rate, either one of these two choices seems to be equally not super great, not ideal. But I would pick this top option over the red a little bit, but again, it's about a 50-50 shot, and it's only $5, and the whole B is being worked on actively, and they've already said the price will go up regardless. So whether or not it's released, there's a good indication it's coming. So I would definitely pick this up, and I don't think we'll have next IAE next year or before this comes out. So I would spend this $5 today. Again, store credit, and then put that in your buyback, or if you want to hold on to it, that's fine too. We'll have the Raft here next. The reason I want to talk about the Raft's already out. However, I would pick up Warbonds for this as well because it is going up in price. That's one of the ships that they've mentioned. We've already covered the Railen's going to go up. We've already covered that one, and I've already talked about the price increase a little bit. We've now covered the Hull B. That's another one that'll be going up. So the Raft is the next one we're going to have in line here. Again, it's not a concept ship, but spend the $5 from the Nova. Additionally, because the Wolf's out now, I wouldn't pick the Legionnaire here because the Legionnaire is not out yet, and it's not a good choice. There's two other choices. I would pick one of those two. So I would pick the new Wolf if you want to, or I would pick the Nova. Either one of these two is fine. There won't be a more than likely there won't be a Warbond. The Nova I think has had one. It's been a while. I like that I just continue to put my foot in my mouth. I know I had this not too long ago because I know I bought some of these too. I just thought it had been at least this long, but Okay, the Nova does show up just because with these, and this is the reason they didn't do one with the a Warbond with the Wolf Alpha Wolf is because they don't like to do Warbonds for these ships that are like 120 and down. They've been pretty light. So that Nova, there's been a couple of them. So I would definitely pick the Nova over the Wolf. It has a better track record. Even when the Wolf released, it didn't get a Warbond. So the Nova probably being the better choice here. That was going to be my recommendation, anyways. But again, if you wanted to buy it, a couple of these for $5 between these two, just spend your store credit today to buy some of these war bonds. You can only buy 5 at a time. That's another thing to note. So if you're trying to put them in your cart, don't put like 10 in there. Even if you have the amount of store credit, you can only do five at a time. Otherwise, you get an error and it resets the cart. Okay, we're down to the last few here. We got to get to the whole A. I'm trying to see if there's any other. I'm trying to think if there's any other concepts. We're about to find out. And let me know if you have any questions down below. I do my best to cover these, but I think it's just now is a good time. There's a lot of CCUs to cover, and I think it's important to cover all these as this is the last chance to pick some of these up before prices go up because the Raft will go up in price. We've already covered the whole B and we've covered the Railen. We need to cover the whole A. That'll also go up in price. Yeah, I don't think there's any other concepts that are this low. Well, that's not true. There are concepts, but they're super low down in here. There's stuff like the G12. Those are definitely worthwhile picking up, but there's no sign they're coming. Whole A. So this is the last one that I'll definitely recommend, and it's $5 to go from. I wouldn't choose the Warlock here. The Warlock's only usually available during IAE or Fleet Week. The Herald is made available more often, and I think it actually does occasionally have. No, it doesn't have really many war bonds. Yeah, we're now into the part where ships that are close to $100 like this. The last one I remember is the Storm AA. So we're not going to find a lot of ships. These are not going to have a war bond, unfortunately. So the reason I would pick up a whole A at this point, even if you don't want a whole A, is this is the perfect time to pick up a quote unquote a war bond for store credit because they've already said the whole A will go up in price. Even if it goes up by $10, what you're buying now is $5 in store credit for a potential $10 war bond. So you're pre-buying a war bond with store credit. I don't know how else to kind of describe this, but to say the whole A is already out, it will go up in price. They've already mentioned that before this event started. So if you buy this now, as the whole A goes up in price, you're just actually getting that in value. So if it goes up by $5, you're going to go. It's going to be a 2-to-1. You're going to get your $5 back. If it goes up by $10, you're going to get a 2-to-1 deal. So you'll get $10 for the $5 you spent. So if it goes up by any more than that, I don't suspect it'll go up more than $10 to be $100 total. But at least if you get $5 out of it, you're going to double your money in value of going up. And this is, again, there's been so few war bonds that are $100 or less. This is the first time you're going to be able to buy one, and it'll be at store credit since a few have been made available. And again, the Storm AA is the only one I can think of that's been made available recently. If I go AA here, Storm AA, this was made available this year in April. So this is the last time I've seen one this low of a price. Is the only one I can think of. I've got like one left. So I'll be holding on. I've stacked a couple of these, and I'll plan on holding on to them because they're going to be the best way to go from the Herald to the whole A. I'll have spent $5, but again, when the price goes up, even if it goes up by $5, it'll save me $5. And that's all the Storm A did anyways. It was only a $5 war bond. So picking up now, if it goes up by $5, that's as good as the Storm AA was a few months ago, many months ago at this point. Best case, it goes $10. They make it a $100 ship, or it goes even higher. Then it's just a full-on win, and I'm spending $5 to store credit to do that now, and I'm going to hold on to them. I don't plan to put these in my buyback because we don't know when that price increase will happen. But for you personally, if we probably won't know when they're going to bring that pricing. It could be the day after IAE, to be honest. So I would hold on to these for the whole A specifically. The whole B, kind of the same story in the Railen and the Raft. All of those, I plan on personally holding on to those because the price increase could happen literally the day after IAE. It could be December 3rd, could be December 4th. We just don't know. I'm going to hold on to them, but yeah, that's about the best I could do. If you want some of these other ones that are going to potentially go up in price that are worthwhile, like a war bond where they'll go up in price out of concept, there are a couple ships under the low side here that are going to be made available. So there's the Ranger series. So $35 here. You can pick that up. There's not a lot of room here. So the Aurora MR. You're spending $5. I don't know how much it might go up by $5. So it's a small amount, but hey, it's better than nothing. Maybe it might even stay the same price, to be completely honest. We don't know that these concepts will actually go up in price. The Ranger CS CV, same thing here, same price, same kind of guidance here. Ranger TR, we don't necessarily know these may not go up in price. More than likely they could by $5 or so, maybe even 10. We're gonna have the G12 here in a bit as well. I think there's one more Ranger. We know another MD is coming along for crafting. Here's the G12, the G12R, the racing variant. These potentially could go up by another $5 or something. So if you want to buy these now, you could do the store credit. Maybe like a Cyclone. Again, you're not going to find the Cyclone as getting a Warbond and stuff like that because they don't do Warbonds for these anymore. It looks like they never have. So at least as far as the CCU game is tracked. So what you do is you buy this now. The minute you know the G12 is coming, you buy this out of the buyback, and allows you to get some upward momentum. Possibly the G12 goes to $65, and then allows you to get $5 to spend for $5 of extra value. That's about it. Again, there's a couple other concepts in here, but I don't want to belabor this. I'm already kind of dragging it out a bit too long anyways. Let me know if you have any questions. That's just an overview of some of the ships that are coming. We know are coming. There are more ships coming, but those are the ones that are concepts, and I would definitely spend a little to get those into your at least buyback. And again, for the whole A, the whole B, the Raft, and the Railen, those specifically are ships that are actively in development. I expect to see they're either already out, the whole A and the Raft, or they're going to go up in price possibly relatively soon. We don't know when they're going to go up in price. We just know that as of the end of IAE, they could go up at any time. So it is a little in FOMO, but at least we know they're going to have upwards value. Do I want to talk about what price I think I'll end up at? The Raft and the whole A. The whole A I already did. I said the whole A would be possibly going up to a whopping $10, $5 or $10. The Raft, it's already been kind of said on the CCU game that the SRV might be where it ends up at. The SRV being 165. I don't know if it goes up that high. Maybe it goes to 150. Let's take a look at some of the ships around those areas. It can't really, I don't think it goes above the Taurus, although it's similar in capability as that. It just doesn't have the same fighting capability. I don't think it goes to 185. I think that's all too much. SRV seems reasonable, so it could go from 125 to 165. That seems definitely reasonable to me. 150 seems reasonable. There's a lot of ships in the 150 range now. I think 150 seems like the possible sweet spot. It could go upwards of 165. So I think going up by $25 at a minimum seems reasonable to me. 165 seems also possible. I don't expect it to go much more than that. There's a bunch of ships at 185. That would probably be the next tier it potentially could go to. But obviously, they've already said it's not saying at 125. Does it go up by $5? That's also possible. Then I would just melt on mine. But I think it goes up to 150, or it possibly goes to 165, or possibly the 185 mark, where a bunch of ships are at the 185 mark. Anyways, I hope you all found that helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, as I've mentioned probably a couple times, probably too many times. Appreciate those taking time to like, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.